Good day everyone. We are Team Warriors, and today we are pleased to present our comprehensive cyber risk management plan for CyberNexa International SDN. BHD. This project was developed based on the ISO, IEC 27005 Cyber Risk Management Framework and the ISO, IEC 27002 Information Security Controls. Throughout this presentation, we will discuss the organization's background, the risk assessment process, the identified assets, threats, and vulnerabilities, the risk analysis and evaluation, as well as the recommended risk treatment strategies and security controls to strengthen the organization's cybersecurity posture. We hope this presentation provides a clear understanding of our proposed cyber risk management plan. Thank you, and let's begin. This slide introduces the case study used in our cyber risk assessment. CyberNexa International SDN. BHD is a multinational organization that operates a network consisting of internal users, remote users connected through VPN, a DMZ containing public-facing servers, and an internal network infrastructure. As internal cyber auditors, our objective is to develop a comprehensive cyber risk management plan based on ISO, IEC 27005 and ISO, IEC 27002 to identify, analyze, evaluate, treat, and manage the organization's cyber risks. This slide shows the cyber risk management process based on ISO, IEC 27005. The framework consists of 6 main phases: context establishment, risk identification, risk analysis, risk evaluation, risk treatment, and risk acceptance. These phases provide a structured approach for identifying, assessing, and managing cybersecurity risks. In this project, we followed all 6 phases to develop a comprehensive cyber risk management plan for CyberNexa International SDN. BHD. This slide introduces CyberNexa International SDN. BHD, which is the organization selected for our case study. CyberNexa is a multinational IT and digital services company that provides online business solutions and data management services. The organization operates multiple departments, including management, IT, finance, human resources, sales, marketing, and customer service. Its network infrastructure consists of firewalls, routers, switches, Wi-Fi routers, DMZ servers, and VPN access to support both internal users and remote employees. Overall, the organization aims to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of its business information through a secure network environment. This slide presents the internal cyber audit team responsible for conducting the cyber risk assessment for CyberNexa International SDN. BHD. The team is led by the Chief Internal Auditor, who oversees the overall audit process. The lead cyber risk auditor is responsible for identifying organizational assets, threats, vulnerabilities, and risk scenarios. The network security auditor reviews the network infrastructure, including firewalls, routers, switches, VPN access, and DMZ servers. Finally, the ISO, IEC 27002 control auditor maps the identified risks to the appropriate security controls and supports the risk treatment recommendations. Together, the team ensures that the cyber risk management plan is properly planned, analyzed, and documented.
Next, we will present Section A, which focuses on context establishment. This section defines the scope, organizational environment, and assessment criteria used throughout the cyber risk management process. This slide defines the scope of the cyber risk assessment conducted for CyberNexa International SDN. BHD. The assessment covers 4 main areas. First is the network infrastructure, which includes the internal network, firewalls, routers, switches, and Wi-Fi routers. Second is the DMZ environment, consisting of the web server, application server, and storage server that provide public-facing services. Third is the endpoint devices, including desktop PCs, laptops, tablets, mobile phones, printers, and IP phones used by employees. Finally, the assessment also includes remote access services through VPN connections that support work-from-home employees. These assets were selected because they are essential to the organization's daily business operations and cybersecurity. This slide presents the business objectives of CyberNexa International SDN. BHD, which are based on the CIA triad. The first objective is confidentiality, which ensures that sensitive customer and company information can only be accessed by authorized users. The second objective is integrity, which ensures that information remains accurate, complete, and protected from unauthorized modification. The third objective is availability, which ensures that systems and services remain accessible whenever they are needed to support business operations. By achieving these three security principles, CyberNexa aims to protect its critical information assets, maintain reliable IT services, and reduce cybersecurity risks that could affect business continuity. This slide presents the risk assessment criteria used in this project. Each identified risk is evaluated based on two factors: likelihood and impact. The likelihood scale measures the probability of a risk occurring, ranging from 1, which represents a rare event, to 5, which represents an almost certain occurrence. The impact scale measures the severity of the consequences if the risk occurs, ranging from insignificant to critical. After determining both values, the overall risk score is calculated using the formula: risk score equals likelihood multiplied by impact. This scoring method helps prioritize risks and supports appropriate risk treatment decisions based on their level of severity. This slide presents the risk level classification and assessment assumptions used in this project. Based on the calculated risk score, risks are categorized into 4 levels: low, medium, high, and critical. Higher risk levels require more immediate attention and stronger security controls, while lower risks are monitored through routine management activities. The assessment also follows several assumptions, including continuous VPN usage for remote employees, 24-hour business operations, exposure of internet-facing servers to cyber threats, and the existence of basic security controls such as firewalls, antivirus software, and VPN encryption. These assumptions provide a consistent basis for evaluating and prioritizing cyber risks throughout the assessment process.
Next, I will present Section B, which focuses on risk identification. In this section, we identify the key assets, cyber threats, vulnerabilities, and risk scenarios that may affect CyberNexa International SDN. BHD. This slide presents the results of the asset, threat, and vulnerability identification conducted for CyberNexa International SDN. BHD. A total of 15 organizational assets were identified, including web servers, application servers, storage servers, VPN access accounts, firewalls, routers, switches, desktop computers, laptops, mobile devices, and the internal network. These assets support the organization's daily business operations and therefore require appropriate protection. Next, 12 major cyber threats were identified. These include DDoS attacks, phishing, man-in-the-middle attacks, ransomware, insider threats, SQL injection, malware, data exfiltration, network intrusion, eavesdropping, lateral movement, and unauthorized access. These threats represent the most significant risks that could affect the organization. In addition, 15 security vulnerabilities were identified. Examples include misconfigured firewalls, weak passwords, the absence of multi-factor authentication, unpatched operating systems, default credentials, outdated antivirus software, weak access controls, poor network segmentation, and excessive user privileges. These vulnerabilities could be exploited by attackers if they are not properly addressed. Overall, these identified assets, threats, and vulnerabilities provide the foundation for developing the organization's risk scenarios, risk analysis, and appropriate treatment strategies in the following sections. This slide presents 5 representative risk scenarios developed by combining the identified assets, threats, and vulnerabilities. Each scenario demonstrates how a specific threat can exploit an existing vulnerability to affect an organizational asset. The first scenario shows a DDoS attack targeting the web server through a misconfigured firewall, which could disrupt online services and make the website unavailable. The second scenario involves phishing attacks against VPN access accounts using weak passwords, allowing attackers to gain unauthorized access to the internal network. The third scenario illustrates ransomware exploiting an unpatched operating system on the storage server, resulting in encrypted business data and service interruption. The fourth scenario highlights an SQL injection attack against the application server caused by weak input validation, which may allow attackers to access or manipulate the backend database. Finally, the fifth scenario shows an eavesdropping attack on IP phone communications due to weak VoIP configuration, potentially exposing confidential voice communications. These representative scenarios demonstrate the relationship between assets, threats, and vulnerabilities, and they form the basis for the risk analysis, evaluation, and treatment presented in the next sections. Next, I will present Section C, which focuses on risk analysis and the risk register. In this section, the identified risks are analyzed, scored based on likelihood and impact, and prioritized according to their risk level. This slide presents the results of the risk analysis and evaluation for the identified risk scenarios. Each scenario was assessed using two criteria, likelihood and impact, with scores ranging from 1 to 5. The overall risk score was then calculated by multiplying the likelihood and impact values. Based on the analysis, the web server DDoS attack received the highest score of 20 and was classified as a critical risk. The VPN account compromise and storage server ransomware scenarios were classified as high risks with scores of 16 and 15. The application server SQL injection scenario was rated as medium risk, while the IP phone eavesdropping scenario was classified as low risk. These results help prioritize the most significant cybersecurity risks, allowing the organization to focus its resources on the risks that require immediate treatment and stronger security controls. Next, I will present Section D, which focuses on risk evaluation. In this section, the analyzed risks are compared against the organization's risk criteria to determine their treatment priority. This slide presents the final risk register, which summarizes the 5 highest priority cyber risks identified during our assessment. These risks were selected based on their calculated risk score, obtained by multiplying the likelihood and impact values. The purpose of the risk register is to prioritize risks, assign responsible personnel, and document the current security controls implemented by the organization. The highest ranked risk is the web server located in the DMZ, where a DDoS attack could exploit a misconfigured firewall. This risk receives a score of 20 and is classified as critical because it could make the company's online services unavailable and significantly affect business operations. The second highest risk involves VPN access accounts. A phishing attack combined with weak passwords results in a high-risk score of 16. This could allow attackers to gain unauthorized access to the internal network and compromise sensitive company information. The third risk is the storage server in the DMZ. Ransomware exploiting an unpatched operating system receives a high-risk score of 15 because it may encrypt important business data and interrupt daily operations. The fourth risk is an SQL injection attack targeting the application server due to weak input validation. This risk is classified as medium with a score of 12. If exploited, attackers could access, modify, or delete sensitive database records. Finally, the fifth risk affects the organization's IP phone system. Weak VoIP configuration could allow eavesdropping attacks, giving unauthorized users access to confidential voice communications. This risk is classified as low with a score of 6. For each identified risk, a responsible risk owner has been assigned, including the IT manager, security officer, system administrator, web developer, and network administrator. Existing controls such as firewall rules, password policies, user awareness training, antivirus protection, backup systems, web application firewalls, and access controls are already in place to reduce these risks. Overall, this risk register provides a structured overview of the organization's most important cyber risks and serves as the foundation for selecting appropriate risk treatment strategies, which will be presented in the next section. Next, I will present Section E, Risk Treatment. In this section, we explain how the identified cyber risks can be reduced to an acceptable level by selecting suitable treatment strategies based on ISO/IEC 27005. We also recommend appropriate ISO/IEC 27002 security controls to address the highest priority risks identified during the assessment. The following slides will explain the selected treatment methods and how these controls help strengthen CyberNexa International SDN. bodes overall cybersecurity posture. This slide presents the selected risk treatment plan for the 5 highest priority cyber risks identified during our assessment. Each risk is assigned the risk reduction treatment strategy because reducing these risks is more practical and cost-effective than avoiding, transferring, or accepting them. Starting with the highest priority, the first risk involves the web server in the DMZ, where a DDoS attack could exploit a misconfigured firewall. To reduce this risk, we recommend implementing ISO, IEC 27002 controls A8.20 and A8.16, which focus on network security and monitoring activities. These controls help strengthen firewall protection, monitor abnormal traffic, and ensure the availability of customer-facing services. The second risk affects VPN access accounts, where phishing attacks and weak passwords may allow unauthorized access. The recommended controls are A5.17 and A8.16, which improve authentication mechanisms, enforce stronger password management, and monitor suspicious login activities. The third risk involves the storage server, which is vulnerable to ransomware because of an unpatched operating system. Controls A8.13 and A8.7 are recommended to improve information backup, malware protection, and regular system updates, ensuring critical business data can be recovered if an attack occurs. The fourth risk targets the application server, where weak input validation may result in SQL injection attacks. Controls A8.8 and A8.7 focus on secure software development, technical vulnerability management, and protecting applications against malware. Finally, the fifth risk relates to the firewall, where configuration weaknesses may expose the network to unauthorized access. Again, A8.20 and A8.16 are recommended to improve network security monitoring, strengthen firewall configurations, and protect the organization's network perimeter. Overall, these treatment strategies are selected according to the organization's risk appetite and business objectives. By implementing the recommended ISO, IEC 27002 controls, CyberNexa International SDN (BHD) can significantly reduce cyber risks while ensuring that any remaining residual risks are continuously monitored and managed. Next, I will present Section F, ISO, IEC 27002 Control Mapping. In this section, we map each identified cyber risk to the appropriate ISO, IEC 27002 security controls. This mapping ensures that every recommended treatment is supported by internationally recognized cybersecurity best practices. The following slide explains the selected controls, their implementation objectives, and how they help CyberNexa International SDN (BHD) strengthen its overall security posture and reduce cybersecurity risks. This slide presents the ISO, IEC 27002-2022 control mapping for the identified cyber risks. After selecting the appropriate risk treatment strategies, each risk is mapped to the most relevant ISO, IEC 27002 security controls to ensure that the recommended safeguards follow internationally recognized cybersecurity best practices. The first mapping is for the web server DDoS attack, which is associated with Control 8.20, Network Security. This control strengthens network protection, improves traffic monitoring, and helps maintain the availability of critical online services. The second mapping addresses VPN account compromise, where Control 5.17, authentication information is recommended. This control improves password management, protects authentication credentials, and reduces the risk of unauthorized access. For the storage server ransomware risk, two controls are applied. Control 8.7, protection against malware, helps prevent malicious software attacks, while Control 8.13, information backup, ensures important business data can be recovered if ransomware successfully encrypts the system. The application server SQL injection risk is mapped to Control 8.28, secure coding. This control encourages secure software development practices, validates user input, and reduces vulnerabilities that attackers could exploit. Additional controls are also recommended for other identified risks. Control 8.20, network security, strengthens firewall configurations. Control 5.15, access control, restricts unauthorized access to systems and information. Control 8.24, use of cryptography, protects wireless communications through encryption. And Control 8.8, management of technical vulnerabilities, ensures software vulnerabilities are identified and patched promptly. Overall, this control mapping demonstrates that every major cyber risk is supported by one or more appropriate ISO, IEC 27002 controls. By implementing these controls, CyberNexa International SDN, BHD, can improve the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of its information assets while strengthening its overall cybersecurity posture.
Next, I will present Section G, Risk Acceptance. After identifying, analyzing, evaluating, and treating the cyber risks, the final step in the risk management process is risk acceptance. In this section, we explain which residual risks remain after implementing the recommended security controls and why these risks are considered acceptable based on the organization's risk appetite, business objectives, and continuous monitoring practices. The next slide will summarize the organization's final risk acceptance decision. This slide presents the risk acceptance results after the recommended treatment strategies and ISO, IEC 27002 controls have been applied. At this stage, the organization evaluates the remaining residual risks and determines whether they can be accepted based on its risk appetite, business objectives, and operational requirements. As shown in the table, the IP phone eavesdropping attack remains at a low residual risk level with a score of 6. Since the likelihood and impact have been significantly reduced, this risk is accepted without requiring additional controls. The application server SQL injection risk remains at the medium level with a score of 12. Although secure coding and input validation have reduced the risk, continuous monitoring is still required, and the residual risk is considered acceptable. The VPN account compromise and storage server ransomware risks remain at the high level. However, they are classified as acceptable with tolerance because strong authentication, backup procedures, malware protection, and continuous monitoring have already been implemented to reduce their potential impact. Finally, the web server DDoS attack remains the highest residual risk with a score of 20. Although it is still classified as critical, it is accepted as a managed risk because the organization has implemented multiple security controls, including firewall protection, network monitoring, and incident response procedures. As this server supports critical business services, completely eliminating the risk is not practical. Overall, this final assessment shows that all remaining risks have been evaluated carefully and accepted according to CyberNexa International SDN. BOD's risk appetite. Even after acceptance, the organization will continue monitoring these risks to ensure they remain within acceptable limits.
This slide summarizes the overall findings of the cyber risk assessment conducted for CyberNexa International SDN, BHD, and presents the key recommendations to further strengthen the organization's cybersecurity posture. Throughout this project, a comprehensive cyber risk assessment was successfully carried out by identifying the organization's critical assets, potential cyber threats, and existing vulnerabilities. These findings were then combined to develop realistic risk scenarios, allowing each risk to be evaluated using the likelihood and impact criteria. Based on the calculated risk scores, appropriate treatment strategies were proposed, and relevant ISO, IEC 27002 to 2022 security controls were mapped to reduce the identified risks. After implementing these controls, the remaining residual risks were evaluated and accepted according to the organization's risk appetite and business objectives. This demonstrates that cybersecurity risk management is not about eliminating every risk completely, but about reducing risks to an acceptable and manageable level while maintaining normal business operations. To further improve the organization's security posture, several recommendations are proposed. First, CyberNexa should conduct periodic cyber risk assessments to identify newly emerging threats and changes in the threat landscape. Second, all systems should be kept up to date through regular security patching and vulnerability management. Third, continuous cybersecurity awareness training should be provided to employees because human error remains one of the leading causes of security incidents. In addition, the organization should continuously monitor the effectiveness of implemented security controls, review and update the risk register regularly, and strengthen its incident response and disaster recovery capabilities to ensure business continuity during future cyber incidents. In conclusion, this project demonstrates how a structured cyber risk assessment, supported by ISO, IEC 27002-2022 security controls, enables CyberNexa International SDN (BHD) to improve its overall cybersecurity posture, protect critical information assets, and build a more resilient and secure business environment. That concludes my presentation on the Comprehensive Cyber Risk Management Plan for CyberNexa International SDN (BHD). Through this project, I successfully identified the organization's critical assets, analyzed potential threats and vulnerabilities, evaluated cyber risks using likelihood and impact, proposed appropriate risk treatment strategies, mapped the recommended ISO, IEC 27002-2022 security controls, and evaluated the organization's residual risk acceptance. I hope this presentation has clearly demonstrated how a structured cyber risk assessment can improve an organization's cybersecurity posture and support better risk management decisions. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I sincerely appreciate your valuable feedback and would be happy to answer any questions.